How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. Yes, I am back from a very, very busy weekend. There's so much stuff going on in wrestling, and as I talked about last night on the Wrestling Observer radio show, really, of all of the things going on this weekend, to me, one of the biggest stories, there are two big stories this weekend. Number one is what appears to be the success of the first ever AEW pay-per-view. We don't have numbers right now, but the first show, the All-In show, which technically was not an AEW show, it was like a New Japan, Ring of Honor, future AEW show. That show did 55,000 buys on pay-per-view, and this one, by all indications, did much better than that. We don't know how much better it did, but it did much better. The show was a big success, and that was the first big story. The second big story is, for years, I have heard from fans, Vince needs competition. If WWE has competition, Vince is going to turn it up, and he's going to turn things around, and competition is best for everybody, and it'll make for better shows. The reality is, last night was the first Raw after WWE got themselves competition, and they did nothing different. It was like the exact same show. In fact, I can't even say it was the exact same show. They did basically an hour of no professional wrestling on that show. That was their reaction to All Elite Wrestling. So to say that I was disappointed with Vince McMahon's reaction to All Elite, that's not even scratching the surface as to my feelings about Raw last night. So we could talk about everything this weekend. If you've got any questions, obviously you can text them to me. Give us a call, 844-411-5411. Text messages 425-780-7566. We got a lot to get into, and we're going to kick it off after the break, so stick around. Wrestling Observer Live. Yes, I'm here. Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Got a lot to get into here today. Got a lot of things going on. If you're a video.f4wonline.com subscriber, you can see what's going on right now. But, Mike, what's happening?
What's up, boss? How are you?
Hey, why don't you talk about Raw for a second while I fix something here?
Don't really have to talk about Raw. There's so
what'd
many
you think of the
things
show?
That I could... Well, I was getting to that. Let me filibuster here momentarily while you go on and you do what you have to do, trying to figure out all sorts of measurements and levels and things like that to make the show as successful as it is. Raw sucked. Raw sucked because WWE sucks right now. Is that too negative? Is that too generic to say? I don't know. When the best thing you can do is put Baron Corbin in a title match and have Sami Zayn whisper the names AEW, That's the best you could have. And I could go off on some sort of rant here, but to be honest, last night I was listening to you and Dave on Wrestling Observer Radio, only available for subscribers over at WrestlingObserver.com. And I didn't even have to get through the whole review. I was pretty much sure that I was going to hate Raw by the time I got to where you explained
what
the women's
fella.
tag team situation is at right now. Yes?
All right, so I'm ready to go here. So let
good.
Let me talk about Sami here, because Sami is obviously the thing that everyone's been talking about here today. So here's a Sami Zayn story, everybody, because I know that there's been all sorts of stories on the internet about what happened, and this is from talking to multiple people. And if you heard the Dave show last night, there was a lot of confusion. And guess what? We're 12 hours past that, and it's still confusion, but I'm going to tell you everything that I know about this story. You ready?
Yes.
So these are two facts about the situation, all right? There are absolutely people who insist that Sami was given the okay to mention AEW, all right? I even heard from one person who said that in the script that went around in the morning yesterday, it was in the script that he was going to mention AEW, all right? One person said that. I had another person say, and Dave had people tell him that it was a scripted line, all right? Now, with that said, I heard from multiple people, far more people, in fact, and people that had heard from other people, who all said the line was not scripted. The line was not supposed to be said. I was also told from multiple people that when it happened, Vince flipped his lid. He was furious that this happened, okay? So, those are the two things that I can tell you. So, however you want to figure out, like, what the hell's going on here, I mean, there's various ways that you could explain this. The one that people seem to think is the most likely is that a small number of people were told that he was given the okay, and then they're working the boys and flipping out about it. I don't know what the answer is, okay? All I know is that some people were told that he was given the okay, but most people said that he wasn't, and that Vince flipped out. And, I wasn't there. I don't know how the flip out occurred. I wasn't there to witness it, but I do know that there were people there who absolutely 100% believed that he was very angry, that this was not him putting on a show for people, that this was not him trying to work the boys, that he was angry when this got on the air. So I don't know how to explain everything. I just know that that's what happened last night, and that's all I can say about it. So there you go.
Say, what level of stupid do you want to believe? Do you want to believe that Sami Zayn was so stupid that, it goes out there and says AEW to draw the ire? I guess, what does he think? He's going to get fired right away? I mean, if he decided to do that on his own, that's pretty dumb. It doesn't really help anybody involved, except for, your friends at AEW, because as soon as it was said, people went and all of their bubble fan base, of which there is a lot of them, just WWE fans, went, hey, what's that? And decided to Google it. If it was done from WWE's side, again, what I just said stands. Stupid. All you did was draw attention to your competition. And as you are probably going to talk about, and as you did at length last night, now you have competition, at least in name only. Obviously not in practice yet. It's not the fall. They haven't started yet. But in name only, you have competition. And that was after their big debut, that was your response to it, which was basically beat it to death and just make everybody remember that you're the one who books this style of pro wrestling, and that's what you do. Either way, when it comes to this thing with AEW, whoever's uttered it, whyever it was said, it really doesn't help anyone involved, including the person that said it.
Well, as also this person here just brought up something else that I want to mention, that it's just really weird because at the Money in the Bank show, I mean, there were production people, there were others backstage who were told the day of the show that Ali was winning Money in the Bank. And the obvious winner was not Ali. It was Brock Lesnar. And they hid Brock Lesnar. And the wrestlers didn't know that it was Brock Lesnar. I wouldn't be surprised if Ali knew, just because he was involved in that big spot. But in general, the wrestlers only knew that there was an eighth mystery person, and that person was going to win. So, I mean, there is, no matter what you conclude about the Sami Zayn AEW thing yesterday, the reality is there, for whatever reason, and I think the obvious reason is they don't want news to get out, but they are working the boys. And this is something that I saw in the dying days of WCW. It actually was before the dying days. When they first started doing this, it was actually when they were starting to get hot, and they were doing the Pillman-Sullivan stuff. But what it does is it breeds mistrust. And so the last thing that they need right now in a promotion where, there are people walking out, Sasha Banks just went home, there are people that their contracts are expiring, Dean Ambrose, and they just leave to go to the competition. The last thing you need right now is to breed mistrust. And on top of all of that, like a wrestling show with no wrestling in the first hour, and then the first match is like a nothing match with Shane McMahon of all people. And then you follow that up with an Iconics match, which was no good. And then you book a match with Baron Corbin, and forget all my problems with Baron Corbin, okay? Pretend it's somebody else, and then we'll get into my problems with Baron Corbin. This dude lost last week in a tag match. I mean, what is he doing in a four-way for a championship match? But they did it anyway. So you got a guy who lost in the middle of the ring last week. Now he's in a championship match. And then the guy happens to be Baron Corbin, and Baron Corbin wins. And it's Baron Corbin versus Seth Rollins for the title at the show in Saudi Arabia, which, I mean, There's no good things about that Saudi Arabia show right now. But that's another one. Like, that's your response to All Elite Wrestling is Baron Corbin is in your title picture against Seth Rollins. I mean, the show is just mind-boggling. They should have opened...
When I give you, pal.
They should have opened with Ricochet versus Cesaro. Like, open with that match. You got a great match. You could say, you know what? You guys had a great show on Sunday, but look, we got some of the best talent in the world right here, including Ricochet. And these guys are going to put on a barn burner match. Nope, it was a bunch of talking. And granted, I love Brock Lesnar dancing, but that's beside the point. It was just a nothing show, the same old show we always see, and like zero proof that if Vince McMahon has competition, he's going to up his game and turn things around. Zero proof.
My Twitter feed really loved Brock Lesnar dancing. I invite everyone to go over to at Sempervive. Yeah, it was fantastic.
And I offered to fight anybody that didn't like
it. And the rest of it, like you said, was, I don't know, it was just predictable. It was almost as just like, it was a digging in of the heels of, no, damn it, you've been eating what I've been giving you for so long. I know how to do this. That's why I'm the only one left. They're going to come and they're going to go just like they do. And we're just going to go on like we've been going on because we have the formula. It's a formula. It's just not working. It certainly is not working.
All right, we're going to head to a break in a little while. If you want to give us a call here today, I'm going to open up the phone lines, a text message line afterwards. 844-411-5411 is the phone number. That is toll-free, 844-411-5411. And you can send your text messages to 425-780-7566. Let's try to talk about Raw and AEW here today, since they're the two big shows. If you want to talk about StarCast, the weekend, all of that, you can do that as well, but those are the main topics. So stick around, and we will be right back. All right, back here on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also WrestlingObserver.com. So I got a couple more things I got to get into before we get into the text messages and phone calls. So last night, in addition to whatever happened with Sami Zayn and AEW, what is so amazing about that segment, okay, is let's go with the idea that somebody at some point gave Sami the okay to mention AEW, okay? Let's just say that happened. So, right. The whole idea of this electric chair is that there's going to be a wrestler out there every week, and they're going to send 3 people into the crowd on live television, and they're going to interview fans with a live mic, okay? Now, 100% last night, those fans that asked questions, they were not plants. They were not office workers. They were not indie workers. They were real, legit, honest-to-God fans. And what happened was the people holding the mic, Kayla or whoever, they went out there and they pre-screened the fans. They said, what's your question? And the fan would say, like, I'm going to ask him when his retirement date is. They said, okay. They gave him the mic. The fan asked the question. All right? So, now that Sami Zayn on that damn electric chair told the fans that they could have asked about AEW, how do you go out there next week and do the same thing that you did this week with real fans? Like, you can't, right? Because now the fans know that they could be asking about AEW, or they could be asking about anything. And, like, the stupid fans will say, well, I'm going to ask him about AEW, and then Caleb will say, well, you can't ask him about that. But, like, the smart fans are going to say, well, I'm going to ask, Alexa Bliss here, like, who does her nails? And then they go live, and the fan goes, what do you think about that women's match at AEW? I mean, this can happen if you are using legitimate fans with this electric chair segment.
What about Hikaru Shida? Coward!
I mean, that's what can happen here. Well, so I mean, it's just, that's insane.
You're right, but this idea, if legitimate, begs for somebody to create a scene anyway. And the idea is just to have an interview segment, fine. If you want to do something interactive, I don't think that's the worst idea in the world. I don't think Sami Zayn if he's not in trouble, being the face of that because he is so quick and he is so great.
It won't be Sami. It's always supposed to be a different wrestler.
I know, but it's like I guess if you can always get somebody like that, the wordplay and the interaction is going to be, I guess, at least mildly entertaining. I guess, but like. That's the response. More talking. The show, is week after week after week has turned into WCW in that you go 45 minutes without a match. You go a whole first hour, almost your highest rated hour. You're doing all that without a match. And now you're just going to add in more talking, and you add in more talking. You have a goofy looking chair that's in the ring that, again, you mentioned this with Dave last night, and I thought about it when I saw it. It's like, so is he going to be like, if he lies or if Corey doesn't like the answer, does he get like electrocuted like Abdullah the Butcher at Halloween Havoc? Like why the electric chair? Why the goofy prop that really doesn't tie in with anything else sitting there? It just is. I don't know. It was what it was. It's hard to talk about Raw every week. It really.
Well, I won't
really
talk about Raw. I'll talk about AEW. So listen, we don't have the numbers for the pay-per-view yet. I don't know if we'll ever get final numbers, but here are things that I can tell you about these numbers, and I have a point to this. So All In did 55,000, and almost assuredly, this did well over 55,000. I mean, yesterday, Dave noted that it's looking like they're going to get more, he's going to get more feedback for this show than any show ever in the history of The Observer. Now, that doesn't mean this is going to do like WrestleMania numbers. Obviously, we got a different audience. This audience is very passionate about AEW, but a ridiculous amount of feedback. The Google Trends numbers for All In.
Yeah, they strike again as being correct.
All In was not even in the top 20, and Double or Nothing was number 2. They had 200,000 Google searches. The last wrestling show that had 200,000 Google searches was Money in the Bank. So,
and notable for those who didn't hear your show, that is on a level that, yes, is it underneath, WrestleMania, or really, I guess it's on par with the bigger WWE and UFC events.
So if we're talking like well over 55,000, they went from not even in the top 20 in Google Trends to number 2 in Google Trends. The feedback that we have gotten, the fact that it was available all over the world on Fight.tv and on traditional pay-per-view and on BR Live, I mean, there's a very good chance that it did 80, 90, 100,000 buys. And the point of all of this is that I don't want to sit here and say, I told some of you idiots this, but I'm going to say that. That's 100,000 buys or whatever at $60 a pop. And the Google Trends number, the reason that is important is because we had people that were saying, oh my God, $60, $50, whatever, it's too expensive. Like, yeah, if you're a hardcore fan who bought All In or whatever, yeah, you're going to buy this. But you ain't going to get no casual fans buying this show. And if you watch the show, I mean, really, I believe that they went in figuring we're not going to get a lot of casual fans for this show. Like, the casual fans are going to come after we get national television. Like, we have no TV to promote this. We're going to promote it the best we can on YouTube and social media and everything like that. But, like, how are we really going to attract casual fans? The reality is they did attract casual fans. That's at 200,000 searches on Google. I mean, they not only got casual fans interested in the show somehow, I don't even know how, but those casual fans bought at $50 or $60 a pop. Because the reality is, if you want to see a show, you're going to spend $60 a pop. Would they have done more at $25? Maybe. But, like,
maybe.
I don't think so.
No.
I think I've seen this in mixed martial arts. I've seen this in professional wrestling when they raised the price of In Your House in 1995, 1996. And keep in mind, not only did they raise the price in 95, 96 for those In Your House shows and do more buys, but that was during an awful period for the company. It's not like, in 1999 when the company was on fire, they said, hey, let's raise the price and we got Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and we're going to do better business. No, this was like 95 when it was Diesel on top and the new generation and the company's losing $6 million. They went from losing $6 million to making money because they raised the price of the In Your House pay-per-views and did more buys. I heard everybody tell me no one's buying Conor McGregor's fight at $100 a pop. 4.7 million people did. Like, this was not a mistake to charge 50 or 60 bucks or whatever it was for this pay-per-view.
On a smaller scale, Ring of Honor did that with their ticket prices, which it was a little bit of a different situation. Doesn't match up entirely, but that was another one where it's just like, what are you doing when they moved? I think it was the move to Ticketmaster or whatever that ended up boosting up the prices so much. But when it was time to have a show that people wanted to see, they paid for it. Because just like you mentioned, all of those other things, just like concerts, it doesn't matter. If the demand is there, somebody is going to pay for it, no matter what it is. And yeah, I mean, they may have lost a couple of people, but I don't think they had really affected anyone at all. And when you look at the percentage of the market that they have, because what's the wrestling market? 2 million people? How many people watch Raw every week for 2 hours and 3 hours? How many people watch SmackDown? How many people order the WWE Network? How many people were Impact doing at the end? What is out there as far as a fan base goes that's going to view you on television, that could possibly view you on TNT? When you start thinking, is it 1.5? Is it 2 million people? You start thinking about what the buy rate is. And again, we don't know exactly what it is, but it's north of 50,000. So it's somewhere between 50 and 100,000. Well, they've got a pretty good base to start working with
no TV.
With no TV. So
when Dave was
those
talking,
Google searches too on Sunday with them coming up, or on Saturday with them being number 2, again, it is very, very notable. When that happens, that is, no matter what it is, that's a big sign.
So when Dave on the show Saturday was talking about how this show was like the equivalent of UFC 1, I mean, that's another indication right there. UFC 1, there was no TV. And they blew people away with their pay-per-view number because it didn't make any sense. And this pay-per-view number, quite frankly, it doesn't make any sense. There's no television. I mean, I don't want to make light of the YouTube numbers for Being the Elite, but we're talking, these are YouTube numbers where the Being of the Elite show, let's say it's at 250,000 viewers or whatever, okay? You got to keep in mind that some people watch a little bit of it and come back to it later. Some people watch it twice. Some people it autoplays. Those numbers are inflated compared to the actual number of people that are watching Being the Elite. But still, that was enough to get this kind of number for this show. So, anyway, I want to mention one other thing since somebody asked about it, then we'll go to the phones. This person wants to know why there was a Cracker Barrel in the ring for the pay-per-view on Saturday. Cracker Barrel is, in fact, one of their sponsors. And Cracker Barrel catered the show, and you have never heard happier wrestlers than to have their food catered backstage by Cracker Barrel.
I can believe that.
That's why there was a barrel there in the ring. We're actually close to a break, so we'll come back after the break and pick up the calls here. But
you ain't seeing that in a WWE ring. Where's their Cracker Barrel?
Yeah, there is no Cracker Barrel in WWE.
Now, see,
although to be fair, nobody I don't think has ever complained about WWE catering. Yeah, that's some good food.
It would make your challenge with Filthy Tom a lot better, though, if you had that as a sponsor.
And this person also says maybe the NBA playoff advertising Double or Nothing had something to do with bringing casual. Positively it did. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Well, as somebody noted here, there is one big difference between WWE and AEW, which is that if there was a Cracker Barrel in the ring on a WWE show, they would in fact mention Cracker Barrel as a sponsor. Whereas AEW just had a barrel in the ring and nobody had any idea what was going on. Which, by the way, I don't know how much they showed on television, but the thing before the match where they were trying to get the barrel out of the ring and Jericho flipped his lid and showed him how to get it out between the middle rope, that was awesome. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
Sitting Duck, Vancouver Island. How you boys doing today?
What's up?
Not much. I'm thinking after this giant weekend of wrestling we had, AEW, there's so much excitement and energy just towards pro wrestling in general. Coming back on Monday with a big show would have been really important. And you know what? They really dropped the ball. And before you get confused, I'm not talking about Raw. I'm talking about you guys. Where the hell were you on Monday?
It's a holiday, dude.
Holiday? I looked at my calendar up here in Canada for that Monday. I don't see any day off.
Did you listen on Sunday?
It was a great show on Sunday.
Okay, just checking.
Thank you. And
all right.
yeah.
Well,
and that was mentioned. Hey.
All right. What else do you got?
Let's go.
Well, honestly, the way I'm looking at it, to all joking aside, that Monday Night Raw really should have been a lot different than it was, and it should have reflected the new energy that's in pro wrestling. This competition is real. It's here. And I think until Raw or SmackDown or just the WWE and product in general responds to that competition, they're going to slowly start peeling away customers, sponsors, Google Trends, Twitter Trends. It's slowly going to peel away towards AEW. And once they have TV in October, you might see two companies at a lot more equal footing, as crazy as that sounds.
Well, I want to thank you very much for the call. I mean, we got to look at reality here, and one of the realities of the situation is it would be extraordinarily difficult for AEW to surpass WWE. I mean, extraordinarily difficult. I mean, if I'm AEW and I'm profitable in 2 years and not losing money, I mean, that's a big win. If you're doing 1.5 million viewers on TNT and you're making money and everybody's happy, I mean, that's a giant success. I mean, this doesn't have to be, we've got to destroy WWE, we've got to beat WWE. I mean, the WWE resources, dude, they got a $2.3 billion television deal. They got $7 billion. The company's valued at $7 billion. I mean, that's not really the goal here. I mean, the goal here is to create something different, give fans something different, become a profitable company, and grow. And it's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that's going to happen in October. It may not be something that happens ever. Who knows? But this is something new and different, and it has a chance, and there's a lot of money behind it, and there's a strong television network behind it, and there is a segment of the fan base that is very much behind it. And it is the best chance at an alternative that there has been in this country since 2001. So we should be happy about that, not sad. I mean, for those of you WWE weirdos that are very upset about all of this, I mean, did you go on Twitter Saturday and see all of the WWE wrestlers who were very excited about AEW? I mean, how do you get mad about AEW and be like a hardcore loyalist to WWE, knowing that the wrestlers in WWE are happy that there's an alternative? I don't understand. Perhaps you can explain it to me. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. Going once. Going twice.
Mike from West Seattle.
Yes, Mike.
Yeah, I was at the event on this weekend. I went to Las Vegas. I was at the Q&A Saturday morning. It was awesome.
Thank you.
I was just blown away by how they were able to kind of really inflate their top stars so quickly, especially when the WWE kind of is super bad at that. Like, going into the show, I was concerned, like, well, you know, they'll probably put Jericho over, but how many times can we see Jericho and Omega fight? And then coming out of that show, it was like, wow, Omega, Jericho, Moxley, Adam Page, Cody, and maybe MJF are, like, right at the top of their card. And that was, like, a pretty amazing feat in, like, one pay-per-view.
Well, you say how many times can we see Omega and Jericho wrestle? I mean, this is the second time, and they're 1-1.
No, I just mean, like, I mean in the sense of, like, obviously if Jericho won, there would be a third match. But until then, I hadn't really considered, you know, Page, or obviously we didn't know Moxley was going. I hadn't really considered Page a top guy yet. So I was just like, well, you know, what are they going to do? They're going to go do Jericho, Omega 3 at All Out, and then what do they do after that? Like, they really need to start building a bunch of guys at the top. And they seem to do that, like, really quickly in one pay-per-view. All of a sudden, there's a bunch of guys at the top. And I was kind of blown away by how that all came together really quickly.
Give them some time, because they got to build them on TV, and they'll have the ability to do that. And, you know, conversely, too, we're talking about, man, how fast could they be right on par with WWE when it comes to at least entertainment value on TV? We still don't know what they're going to be yet. We still have to give them time and let things play out.
Well, I can tell you one thing they'll be. They're going to be a wrestling company. I mean, that was one thing about the live event that I noticed above anything else, and that is they ran a match, and then the match ended, and then they ran another match.
Yeah, not
and
a
the
whole
match
lot of
ended.
downtime.
There was no There was no backstage promo. There was no interview segment. There was nothing.
But that's true. But that was the pay-per-view. Now, again, that's the hope.
Well, sure, they're going to need more on television.
Yeah,
obviously.
I mean, this was nice as a fan, as somebody that, again, is not... Again, I didn't love every match. I didn't love how every match was presented or everyone on it or all of the styles at times, but... It did feel like a wrestling show, not a show with a whole bunch of gaga and talking. I was very worried about that, especially because of kind of how the pre-show went, where there was a little bit more talking, and it just was like, how's this going to end up? And if this is what the plan is, great. I like matches. I like pro wrestling. It's one of the reasons I like New Japan and other places. That's what they give me. When WWE is at their best, that's what they let those guys, their incredibly talented roster, go out there and do. So, yeah, I mean, again, everything is still up on the air on what we're going to see going forward, but at least it was a little bit of something to grow on.
And I'm not going to read these texts from the Russo fan base here, but I would like to sincerely thank all of them for listening to this show every single day.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's up?
Hey, guys. It's Jamie in Tacoma. How you doing?
Two guys from Washington in a row. What's going on?
Yeah, how's it going? So my main takeaway from last night was, have you ever seen a company that has literally openly said, you know what the answer to our problems are? More problems. Like, the brand split makes no sense. Wild cards. Everybody's on every brand now. Wins and losses mean nothing? Okay, well, now they mean even less. Their belts don't mean anything. Belts mean even less. The talent distrust us. Let's work the crew. Let's make them distrust us even more. AEW had a really great show. Let's call attention to that. And then if you look at the Google trends, see that AEW's Google trends skyrocketed literally right after that reference. It's enough to make you go insane, and I'm insane. And it feels like, if I didn't know any better, that the company was trying to accomplish some sort of weird tank job embezzlement scale. It's like the producers, only way more racism.
No, it's none of that. It's that the guy at the top is out of his mind. That's what it is. I mean, you got a crazy conductor running the train. I mean, what do you think's going to happen?
Crazy train?
Yeah, what do you think's going to happen? I mean, that's just it. You got a crazy guy who's running the ship, and there's nobody to tell him he's wrong. There's nobody to tell him no. He's surrounded by yes men. If he messes up, no one's going to correct him. I mean, this is what happens. I got so many conspiracy theories in my email right now. I'm not even going to bother with. But you know what conspiracy theories are? They're a way to try to explain something that you don't understand.
Yep.
And the reality is, there is no conspiracy here. It's easy to understand. It's hard to believe, but it is very easy to understand.
The people there are saying it, and it's not like this is not something new. This is the same Vince as far as his mentality that's been there forever. I know what's best on the final call. I want what I want in that moment that I want it, even if I may have forgotten about something beforehand. It's just everything is out of control right now, and it's at its worst, and he is frankly at his worst. So it's not everyone's fault. It's not like all of this cannot be turned around. It's not like the talent's not there or anything else. It's just that one guy who's steering the ship needs to get out of the way, or somebody needs to take the wheel from him, and unfortunately, with the way things are set up there, nobody's taking the wheel from him.
All right, let me make everybody mad now. It's my job.
Angry.
Since you brought the point, this person says, do you still blame Sasha Banks for leaving the toxic working environment? The woman was promised a decent women's tag team title run with Bayley, where they would defend them in NXT and other places, but just like with Ali, they lied to her. Yes, I still blame Sasha. Listen, she signed a new deal a year ago. This is not brand new. This stuff's been going on forever. You didn't know what you were in for when you signed that contract. You signed a contract. You agreed to come to work and be put in storylines and win and lose based on whatever the whims of Vince McMahon were. Do you know how long Dean Ambrose was unhappy in WWE? Find out what year it was that he worked Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. That was the beginning of the end of Dean Ambrose's happiness in WWE. That was years ago. You know what he did? He went to work. He was involved in his hokey BS, as he called it. He did things he hated, like having to bring up Roman Reigns' leukemia. And then he worked out his contract, and they offered him double the money, and he said no. And they kept pushing him on television, thinking he'd change his mind, and he said no. And then his contract expired, and he signed a deal with New Japan, and he signed a deal with All Elite Wrestling. And he is as happy as a clam right now. He's the happiest guy in the world. So, if you don't like what you signed a contract to do, then go in there and work out your contract, and then leave. Dean Ambrose ain't the only guy to have done it. I mean, I know that Dave disagreed with me, but I believe he's wrong. Bayley as champion is 2 middle fingers to Sasha.
Yeah.
Showing that, hey, she stuck around, she was put in a bad situation that she didn't like, and she kept coming to work, and now she's the champion. And it's going to happen to other people. I mean, Kofi Kingston, Daniel Bryan ended up WWE champion. I mean, you get your chance, and you get your chance taken away from you. Every single day when you work there. You know this going in. So, no, I'm not on Sasha Banks' side getting upset that she lost the women's tag team titles and going home. That's it. If you don't like it, work out the contract you signed, that you read, that your lawyer looked over, that you agreed to, and then leave. That's it. That goes for everybody in WWE.
Well, Pac quit. Wrote it out. Austin Aries quit. To me, I think people are being outside. They pay, well, I guess it's the nature of Sasha Banks, pay too much attention to it, and they beat on it way too much. If she's that upset and she just quit and she's going to go home and she's fine with sitting there, good. You took enough of their money, you invested properly, you have it saved away, and if you don't need that headache, good. But you're exactly right. None of this is anything new. Anybody that signs on there, I don't care what you are told by anybody else there or sweet-talked or any of that sort of stuff, everything always kind of ends up remaining the same. And even with a Bayley, yes, it's 2 middle fingers right now to Sasha, but how long before they just do whatever it is with her and have her lose in an incredibly idiotic fashion and then,
who knows?
Next.
But she knows it's going to happen. Everybody knows.
And again,
you're surprised they changed a plan? Hello? Dude, that's the story of the company. You should be surprised if they don't change a plan. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also WrestlingObserver.com. This person wants to know, what are the odds AEW gets their first 5-star match with Cody versus Dustin? Well, I haven't talked to Dave about it, so I don't know what he's going to rate it, but I would not be the least bit surprised if that was a 5-star match, given that it was a very historic show, it was a very good show, and that was the best match on the show. And anytime that you have a match where when it's over, you look around and there's grown men and women crying, I mean, to me, that's probably a 5-star match. So if I were giving it a rating, I'd give that 5 stars. I don't know what Dave is going to do. And I hope he does, because then we'll have proof that Dave gives 5 stars to matches that don't involve flips, which everyone claims is the only way to get one. So there you go.
Yeah, but they're both tied into New Japan, so.
Spurs says, I'm so confused about the wild card rule. Why doesn't Vince just say the brand split is over? I've said this before. The brand split is in place because it's easier to book house shows with a brand split. But based on the new television deals and the ratings tanking, they need something. And so we've got a random wild card rule where people go back and forth, and it's supposed to be 4, but I'm sure he's forgotten by now. And so he just does whatever he wants because he's Vince. And there's nobody to tell him otherwise. So, that's the story there, and we're out of time, everybody, but we're going to be back tomorrow with more. And in fact, tonight, the Bryan and Vinny and Craig show returns. Retro Raw Nitro 19 years ago this week. The last head-to-head battle. We'll talk about that. And so much more. So thanks, Mike, as always. Callers and listeners, everybody in the studio. We'll talk to you again next time. Wrestling Observer Live.